What we got back paints a real clear picture of an industry that is experimenting boldly, but scaling very, very cautiously. Don't forget, there's an AI networking summit coming up, and you're invited. So go to the ONUG, ONUG.net website to get your tickets now. So, and also if you're on YouTube or Spotify or any of the places where this podcast is being broadcast or streamed, make sure that you hit like or subscribe to it. Thanks. Hi, everyone. I'm Nick Lippis. I'm one of the co-founders over at ONUG. So today I wanted to dive into something I think that is like super important for everyone, and that will really expand this conversation that we're about to have at the AI Networking Summit in Frisco, Dallas on May 13th and 14th. So we just finished doing a survey. It wasn't a large sample size, but it was a sample size of folks who are really in the know, that are kind of managing large infrastructure for corporations. So this is what we found out from that. I think every infrastructure and networking professional needs to hear what I'm about to say, because the data tells the story that is both kind of exciting and also a little uncomfortable as well. Maybe a lot uncomfortable. So we recently surveyed our community, really the board level, like 19 practitioners. These are all the folks who are in the trenches. They manage very large organizations. They're all part of a regulated community. And we asked them, okay, where are they with their AI infrastructure today? And what we got back paints a real clear picture of an industry that is experimenting boldly, but scaling very, very cautiously. So kind of let's get to it. The first area is around AI workloads. So that's a fundamental question about how much of your AI is actually running in production today. And the answer, most of it isn't. About 55% said that less than 10% of their AI workloads are in full production. So and that, so there's a huge amount of hype in the industry, and there is hype around consumer consumption of AI, and also the amount of spending from the hyperscalers. But when it comes to large enterprise, it's really around experimentation. So if you think about it, like there's about another 27%, in that, basically 10 to 25% range. Only about 18% said that they pushed more than a quarter or 25% of their AI workloads into production. So what does that tell us? It tells us that we're still in the experimentation and piloting phase, and that's industry-wide. So the hype is real, the investment is real, but the production deployments are lagging, and there's a huge gap there because the next few quarters will really reveal exactly why that gap really exists. And I think for our community, the problem is our network. So we asked a question that tried to get at that. So, and we think every person who's responsible for global infrastructure should stop, right in their tracks and pay attention to this. So is your network architected for AI scale, meaning both east-west traffic and GPU-intensive workloads, if you have kind of GPU clusters? And only 99% said yes, that it was purpose-built. So it's a very small group. 45% say they partially upgraded, and the combined 45% said either not yet or flat out, hey, I'm not sure. So think about what that means. We are trying to run one of the most bandwidth-hungry, latency-sensitive workloads types that we've ever had in our industry before. And the majority of our networks really weren't designed for it. That isn't just a performance issue. It's really a ceiling on how far AI can actually scale in most environments, which means really the large enterprise, we've got some work cut out for us to do. The network isn't ready. And that's a problem we all need to address head on, not just consumers, but also the vendor community too. We need a whole new set of new products and services that address this. The other real question was, where will AI live? Will it be public, private, hybrid? So, and where is it today? So when we ask this, where is the majority of sensitive AI workloads will run in the next 24 months, the community was split almost perfectly three ways. About 36 said public cloud, 36 said mostly on-prem or private AI infrastructure, and about 27% a hybrid model. Most cloud with some on-prem. Zero responses chose sovereignty or fully controlled environments, at least in this group, which makes a lot of sense because there is so much headwinds around building private infrastructure today. It's cost, it's skill sets, its availability, it's the obsolescence, since the GPU and the chipsets are moving so fast. So there's a lot of headwinds. So, frankly, I was a little bit surprised it wasn't more closer to 90% like in the public. So I think what's the takeaway? And the takeaway is that there really isn't a consensus right now within the large enterprise. Organizations are hedging, and the 36% choosing on-prem or private infrastructure tells you that data sovereignty, security, and control are not abstract concepts. They are actively driving infrastructure decisions right now. So then we wanted to kind of get at what are the inhibitors to scale? So what's holding you back, right? So we asked about the biggest inhibitors. And the top answer, 36%, was governance and compliance. That surprised some people, but it shouldn't. Regulatory pressure, audit requirements, and the need for explainability are real headwinds. Close behind, tied at around 18% each, were security and IP leakage concerns and data gravity, meaning the challenge of moving massive data sets to where the compute lives. Infrastructure cost and the skills or talent gap each came in at 9%. The pattern here is pretty clear. This isn't primarily a technology problem. It's a governance, security, and data architecture problem. We have to solve those layers before the technology can do what it promises, right? AI agents. So there's a lot of talk about a lot of sandboxes. OpenClaude's gotten a huge amount of activity. Nemo Cloud was just recently announced. So kind of where are we in agents? So here's, I think, where things get really interesting. We asked, are you using AI agents in network and security operations today? So this is just in the operations of that infrastructure. And only 9% said no. So a lot of folks are kind of utilizing agents. Everyone else, or at least experimenting, 36% have limited tier 1 automation running. 27% are testing in the lab. And this one surprised me. 27% are already running tier 1 and tier 2 autonomous operations. That's pretty remarkable adoption for something we barely existed just 2 years ago. But it raises an equally important question. Can your infrastructure support autonomous decision-making? When we asked whether systems could autonomously detect, reason, and remediate incidents without human intervention, only 18% had a full yes, or said a full yes anyway. 27% said in limited domains. Another 27% said, well, they're mostly just alerting and not reasoning. And 27% said no. So we're deploying agents faster than we're building the infrastructure to support them. There's a tension there that's really worth watching. In the operations teams, they're deploying agents. You know that there is a huge amount of agents that are being or trying or experimenting within your corporation, which you don't really even have visibility for. Like, Anthropic didn't just have an $8 billion a month in the month of February for nothing. All right. And now a lot of that, the projection is about half of that is really coming from the large enterprise, folks doing coding and also now starting to experiment with agents. So it's not just in the operations piece, but also I would wager to say that there is a lot of agent use within an organization that many within IT just don't have visibility into. Maybe one of the bright spots here, and this probably makes sense for like our community, is that governance is ahead of the curve here. So about 73% said they have a formal governance and risk framework for AI agents that is operational and enforced. That is generally impressive, for technology that is this new. 18% are building one, about only 9% have nothing in place. At a minimum, I'm sure that there's lots of security teams just saying no, don't build it, don't even put it in. All right. But the community takes governance seriously, and that discipline is going to be a competitive advantage. Right. So there is an urgency gap here, and I want to close with 2 data points that together I think tell the most important story of this survey that we've taken. We asked, is your infrastructure roadmap moving fast enough for AI's exponential pace? And only 18% said yes, right? Only 18% said yes. And I think that's a little delusional thinking. 45% said they're not sure. 27% said no. And I would agree with the 27%. And then we asked, if nothing changes in your infrastructure strategy over the next 18 months, what happens? 45% said they fall materially behind their competitors. 27%, they fall slightly behind. Only 18% believe they'll stay competitive. So the community knows the pace of AI is outrunning their infrastructure plans. They know the stakes, and yet governance is solid, agent adoption is accelerating, and people are making real choices about where AI will live. The question really is no longer whether to modernize. The question is whether you move fast enough to lead, or whether you spend the next few years catching up. I think that's really it. So I want to just say thank you for listening, and if these numbers resonate with you and your organization, let's keep the conversation going. We have a full conference scheduled in Dallas, May 13th and 14th, and we hope to see you there. We're going to be talking a lot about this and a lot of other topics at hand as well. So thank you.